Not everything that glows is progress. Not every algorithm that smiles is wisdom. They told us the future would be fast, that speed is the new god, and patience is the price of failure. But what if the faster we run, the further we drift from ourselves? They show us the cities that never sleep, the robots that can laugh, the screens that promise connection, but they don't show us the silence behind them. Because the real future, it isn't the one in the headlines. It's the one growing quietly in our hands, in every line of code we write, in every choice we automate, in every second we trade for efficiency. What if progress has a temperature? And what if it burns at 1300 degrees? In a small workshop in China, a master potter still waits weeks for a single cup to be born. No investors, no sprints, no metrics, just clay, fire, and patience. He doesn't rush the flame because he knows that anything untested by fire will crumble at the first touch of life. And maybe that's what Silicon Valley has forgotten. Maybe speed was never the problem. Maybe forgetting how to wait was. So if you've ever wondered why the world keeps accelerating, yet your heart feels left behind, stay with us. Because what you're about to hear might not just change how you work, but how you breathe. Jason Huang's fingers hovered above the keyboard, trembling slightly. The screen glowed like a sterile sun, flooding his room with blue light. Lines of code blinked across his monitor, relentless and indifferent. It was 2:47 a.m., and the office was nearly empty. Only the hum of the air conditioning and the soft click of mechanical keyboards remained. Jason's coffee was cold, his back ached. He was 28, a senior software engineer at a fast-growing AI startup in Palo Alto. On paper, he was a success story. In reality, he was disintegrating. He once believed that code could save the world. Now, it just consumed it, and him with it. Push, deploy, crash, fix, repeat. Each sprint was faster than the last, each update another layer of crushing pressure. They called it iteration. He called it erosion. When the final build failed for the fourth time that night, Jason stared blankly at the error log. The numbers blurred. Something inside him just snapped. He shut his laptop, leaned back and whispered to the empty room, "I can't do this forever." At that moment, a small notification blinked on his phone. It was an email from his mother, written in soft Mandarin English. "A friend of your grandfather still works at the old porcelain workshop in Jingdezhen. He said you can visit if you need some quiet. The air there is good." Jingdezhen, the porcelain capital of China. He booked a flight before dawn. The workshop was hidden behind an old brick wall, its wooden gate creaking like a distant memory. Inside, sunlight streamed through paper windows, illuminating shelves of unglazed clay, quiet, imperfect, and waiting. An elderly man sat before a potter's wheel, his movement slow but sure. His hands seemed to remember something the rest of the world had forgotten. "You must be Jason," he said, his voice low and calm. "I am Wáng Shīfu." Jason bowed awkwardly. "My mom said you knew my grandfather." "Yes," the man replied with a faint smile. "He was patient. That is rare now." Jason hesitated. "I'm not very patient." The master simply replied, "That's why you're here." He gestured toward the wheel. "Sit." Jason obeyed. The clay was cool and alive under his fingers. He pressed too hard and it buckled instantly. Wáng Shīfu chuckled. "You're fighting it. The clay doesn't obey pressure. It listens to rhythm." They tried again. This time, Jason breathed slower. His hands steadied. For a brief moment, the spinning world shrank into a small centered circle. When the session ended, Jason wiped sweat from his forehead. "How long until it's finished?" he asked. "Many days," said the master. "The clay must rest, dry, be carved, glazed, and finally endure the fire 1300 degrees. Jason frowned. "That's weeks of waiting. Isn't there a faster way?" Wáng Shīfu looked at him with soft, knowing eyes. "If you rush the fire, the clay shatters. Porcelain doesn't fear heat. It fears impatience." He lifted a finished teacup, white and thin as moonlight. "Only what survives the flame becomes strong enough to sing." Jason tilted it in his hand. The cup shimmered faintly in the light, almost as if it were breathing. Days passed in silence. Jason learned to knead, to center, to shape. His hands began to find their own rhythm. Then one morning he found his bowl cracked, fresh from the kiln. The fracture ran across it like a scar. "I did everything right," Jason said bitterly. "Why did it break?" Wáng Shīfu traced the crack gently. "Because it lived." Jason blinked. "What does that mean?" "Every piece of clay carries air, memory, flaws. The fire reveals them. Perfection is not the goal. Harmony is." He set the broken bowl aside. "In Japan, they fill cracks with gold. They call it kintsugi. Here we keep the fracture as a teacher." Jason stared at the fault line again. It was ugly, yes, but it was honest. He thought of his own cracks, the burnout, the sleepless nights, the fragile pride. Perhaps, he thought, the fire hadn't destroyed him. It had only made his weakness visible. That night they drank tea together as rain pattered softly on the roof. Jason asked, "Why keep doing this when machines can make it faster, cheaper, perfect?" The old man smiled. "Because machines can make a cup, but not the silence that lives inside it." Weeks later, Jason finally shaped a cup that held its form. It wasn't perfect, but it was whole. As it spun on the wheel, Wáng Shīfu asked, "Do you know what makes a teacup useful?" Jason thought for a moment. "Its shape?" "No," said the master. "Its emptiness." He lifted a cup. "Without emptiness, it cannot hold tea. Without stillness, it cannot bring peace. You see, the most important part of the cup is what is not there." Jason sat quietly, watching steam rise from a nearby kettle. He thought of his own life, filled to the brim with endless tasks, notifications, and metrics, always full, never still. For the first time he realized, maybe success wasn't about how much he could hold, but how much space he could make. When his own cup finally came out of the kiln, slightly uneven, its rim tinted with ash, he held it like something sacred. It wasn't flawless, but it was alive. When Jason returned to California, he placed the porcelain cup on his desk, right beside his laptop. The city buzzed just as it had before, meetings, deadlines, launches. But he had changed. He still coded, he still built systems of speed and precision, but now, between the lines of logic, he left silence. He let problems breathe. When errors came, he didn't panic. He waited. He observed. He adjusted. Like a potter watching the kiln, his colleagues noticed the shift. "Jason, you seem slower," one of them joked. He just smiled. Maybe that's a good thing. Each morning, he brewed tea in the cup he'd made. Tiny bubbles clung to the glaze like constellations. He noticed them all. He wrote to his mother, "I think I understand now. Grandpa wasn't just fixing radios, he was listening to the silence between the signals." She replied simply, "That silence is called peace." Months later, Jason was invited to speak at a company wellness day. He brought the porcelain cup with him. No slides, no charts, just the cup. He held it up under the bright stage lights and said, "Porcelain survives because it doesn't fight the fire. It lets the flame finish its work. Maybe that's what we need, not more speed, not more code, but the patience to stay in the heat until we re-whole again." He tapped the cup gently. It rang, a clear, pure, resonant sound. The room fell silent. For once in the heart of Silicon Valley, silence was the loudest sound. My life used to be measured by gigabytes and milliseconds. Every breath was a deadline, every thought a sprint. But in that quiet workshop, I learned that clay moves at the pace of the human heart. That fire does not destroy, it refines. Porcelain taught me that true efficiency isn't speed. It's the patience to endure the flame, the humility to crack, and the wisdom to stay empty enough to be filled again. The silence of the pottery wheel brought me something no algorithm ever could, a quiet peace that waits beneath all the noise. This is the Seeds of Serenity, where stories slow down so your soul can catch up. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. We'll see you next time.